Oh,
All
there he is.
right. Yeah, there he is. I like how every guest is like, oh, okay, there's the guy. He's very subtle. Um, hey guys, third episode. Hey Armorans, you're here too, I guess.
Again.
Um, yeah. We're still rolling. We're still doing exciting stuff. Tonight, or I should say tonight because we're recording and it's evening. Anyway, tonight we have a very, very special episode because we have here Lantis and Sam as guests. They're the guys behind the classic loot manager add-on. I don't know if our listeners are using the add-on, but we're gonna get in the ins and outs of what it's like to develop an add-on, what it's like to develop a CLM, how it started, stuff like that.
And also why
Um,
you should try that add-on, because I mean we've been using it in our guild and we are very happy about it.
yeah. But at the Royal Army, we're very big fans of the add-on the guys created. So how about Lantis and Sam? You take some time to what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, I don't know. Just tell us a little bit about yourselves and about your your background and whatever it is that you want to share before we start asking questions because I'm very excited and want to get to it.
You want to go first, Lantis?
We can do that alphabetically, Sam. Will
Good.
be easier.
Oh, the programmer.
Yeah, so hello everybody. I'm Lantis, or if you want to say my name properly, it's Szymon. Usually people have issues saying that name, so I either go by the nickname or
Cool.
Simon. I'm a WoW player. Alliance, always been Alliance. Although my wife tried to pull me on the wrong side, on the Horde side. She always played Horde. I've been playing on Mirage Raceway since the beginning, I think, like 1 or 2 months into the Classic. Started with the Essential Guild, and at the end of TBC, we split off to Pan Intended. Always been playing, since TBC, been playing Shaman, previously Hunter. And since level 40 on my Hunter back in 2019, I'm playing only using a gamepad or recently a Steam Deck. I'm also a dad gamer. My kid, which is now 5 years old, remembers the time when I was in Naxxramas in Classic, and now, a few months ago, she saw me in Naxxramas in Wrath of the Lich King. So quite a history.
Wow, that sounds so wholesome. So wholesome.
Yeah, she's always asking, Daddy, are you playing today or are you putting me to sleep? It's only those two options.
Oh, sweet, man. All right,
Cool.
Sammy, what about you?
Yeah, I'm Sam. I started playing WoW when I was in my first year of university, studying computer science. Was always interested in programming, which is why I studied computer science. And yeah, found it really exciting the first time around. I think I was a bit late in joining. Some others were already playing, and I think I got like max level when TBC or maybe even Wrath of the Lich King dropped. So we played until I'm not sure actually. What I think Wrath of the Lich King was one of the latest expansions, maybe one after that, and then all of us mostly quit. And when Classic came around, we found each other again. So that's been like 10 years or something, and now we're all parents, or we have settled down at least. And yeah, it was really exciting for me to experience the first parts that I've actually had never seen before, or not seriously as a progress guild. Back in the day, I also used to do some add-on creation. I always enjoy, well, as I said, I enjoy programming. I definitely enjoy finding bugs in or unintended features. I remember back in the day, I used to enjoy PvP a lot, and I've always played Druid on the Alliance side, or primarily played Druids. And I remember this was really annoying that when an opponent came into our base, I could see they were coming because of tracking, but I didn't know what class, which is very important if I want to have any chance of defending properly. So I wrote an add-on that actually allows me to have a custom tooltip on the minimap that showed their class colors. That's no longer possible, so I'm afraid they found it well, an exploit or a cheat. But yeah, that was my first attempt at making something to improve my own game a bit.
So
Wow.
would you guys say that you're solving problems that Blizzard doesn't, or it's more like quality features that you're
Quality.
adding? Yeah.
Well, they're the same, right? I mean, by definition, I think we're solving problems that Blizzard doesn't. I'm not sure that they should be solving this problem. I don't think they could. They could make it easier for us to solve problems, though.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting that you mentioned it.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if there's any official documentation. If there is, I would love to be pointed to it after 20 years or what. But I think all documentation is community generated, right?
Oh, so there's not a straightforward line to, create something in add-on or anything, or what goes by the, as you said, the one that was considered an exploit, like in terms of agreement for the add-ons.
Well, there's the terms like that. Those are the same terms for you, I guess. But the standard reasoning is that anything you do within the API that they offer is not very illegal, and if they think it's not beneficial, they will remove it. So they did this for Classic when someone created a dungeon finder, I think.
Oh, but
So
for example, you're allowed to create an add-on. You can publish it, and then you can, they decide if it's considered an exploit or not, or is there some, I don't know if it's this backend or front end. Is this something to stop you from already uploading it?
No. You can definitely upload anything. There's like you will also as an add-on maker not. Give me 1 second. My son's coming and he wants another kiss before he goes to sleep.
That's so cute, so cute. While we wait for Sam to come back, I wanted to ask Lantis because I've heard that both of you have a. Well, I definitely heard that Sam has computer engineering background, so I'm assuming a coding background. Do you, Lantis, have the same, or are you mostly a hardware developer? What's up?
Yeah, well, I'm a fully hardware developer. I use hardware description languages to develop FPGAs and ASICs, and mostly CPUs. And I actually have some software background, like Python or scripting languages like Tcl. Well, Python is scripting language. So it's not like it was complex for me to learn Lua, but I had to learn it from scratch purely for Addon development.
Right. I've never heard of Lua before. This is the first time I've actually. I didn't know that language existed.
You know the
Now
errors you get though, like when
yeah, the
an add-on
Lua
is not
errors.
working.
Oh, true.
Exactly.
Wow. Oh, wow. This shit just flew straight over my head, man. I was looking at it and I'm like, what the fuck is a Lua, man? what is this weird thing? Oh, I see. So do you Lantis, do you feel like anybody can develop an add-on in general, or do they need to have a coding background, or is it just, it makes it easier?
Well, at this point, I would say anybody can. You would
Oh, okay.
need to have a coding background or start learning coding somewhere, because learning coding in WoW environment is not easy, to be honest. The environment, the documentation, as some mentioned, basically everything, all the limitations imposed by Blizzard makes developing add-ons pretty tedious, I would say.
Definitely.
Right.
I would like to add to that though that especially back in the day, and you can still see that most developers don't have a programming background. So most add-on developers don't have a programming background, but luckily there are no real quality requirements. So you can get away with writing very bad code. So I think anyone can do it, but especially the bigger add-ons, there you would expect some actual skilled developers. So like the bigger, like I cannot imagine DBM having developers who have no real background in developing. But
Yeah.
smaller add-ons, there will just be people copy pasting stuff from the internet and then reloading until it works.
So
Oh, I see.
are you using add-ons in general in your play, or only your add-ons? I mean,
Oh, me? Well, I'm definitely using a lot of add-ons. Like the standard interface is not great. So for healing, I use things like Voodoo. My unit frames have add-ons. So yeah, I think I use as many add-ons as anyone else.
I have a really
I
silly
think it is
question.
possible to play without add-ons at this time, to be honest.
No,
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
I have a really silly question. I was thinking, for example, when we go to like Cursor or anywhere to download an add-on, we're just reading a pure little description. Then, if it suits us, or depending on the downloads, etc., we get the add-on. For you guys, since you're developing, uh, is there a way? Are you looking like, because some add-ons have, the script or some things you can check out? Do you read that as well before downloading anything?
Oh, interesting question.
No, I don't. To be honest, I use WowUp, the add-on downloader, and I mostly use popular add-ons. So
Right.
then I feel comfortable enough. There cannot be really bad stuff in there anyway. So they just might perform badly, and then I'll just remove them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, I did reverse engineer few add-ons just to check what's going on because I had some issues with them.
I
I
knew it.
won't
I
give
knew it.
names.
I'm sure. I was sure as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was one situation when enabling an add-on did a denial of service for everyone in the guild. And basically
Wow.
few people even just ignored me because ignoring you ignores the add-on communication also. And I even told the author about that issue. And
Right.
as for today, it is nearly half a year, and that issue is still not fixed in that add.
But that's bad. I think weak hours had a similar problem actually. So I mostly focused in the CLM development on the communication library. And one interesting part about the way Blizzard created it is that you cannot really send big messages. So the community has come up with ways to send them more slowly. Throttling is what it's called. If you send out a lot of messages at once, it'll just disconnect you. So they will split up the messages in smaller packets and then reassemble them. But Addon's not implementing this properly, and this used to be weak hours as well. They could actually hang while reassembling. So you could just send them small pieces, and then at the end you could say I'm done, and that could lead to a 5-second freeze if you just send them messages for long enough. So that was actually quite recently. I think this year I was thinking on that issue that existed in CLM as well, or could be abused in our communication library, and I was very conscious of this limitation. Although in practice, within a guild, you can just guild kick them. That's a simple problem as well, a simple solution. But for
Yeah,
weak
yeah.
hours, it wasn't the case. So you could actually freeze up anyone. You just send them small messages for 3 minutes, and then hit pull the trigger, and they would just freeze for a few seconds.
Wow.
I guess that could be exploitable in battlegrounds if you were creative enough.
Yeah,
Creative
let
enough.
me add to one thing here. It's not that the weak auras had the issue, it's that you can actually use the comms within weak aura, an aura, actual aura, and it can cause the issues.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
It's quite a distinction, because while weak auras is a very special case. I really love weak auras. Most of my UI is weak auras because I can actually tailor it myself very easily. However, if you will go and download any random weak aura and check how they behave in terms of performance or communications, you would be shocked how bad most of the auras are. Because anyone can create them, and people just create them, upload them, and without any further thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad, you mean in terms of efficiency, or just spaghetti code in general?
Efficiency.
Efficiency. I see.
Just by the way, I just double checked. It was actually in the weak aura code like itself. So it wasn't a weak aura that broke the stuff. It was the synchronization. So the sharing of links. They fixed it very, very promptly, by the way. But the sharing of links used to be when you send it to someone, they would immediately download it, and only then show the pop-up. So now you actually have to click the link before you download the big bulk or something.
I see.
But they did a great job at fixing that. So those are the things that I really like to focus on, especially on communications, because you wouldn't want anyone to be able to affect your game locally.
So back to your add-on, to at least the big one. I'm pretty sure that you guys have developed a lot of other ones that maybe didn't see the public eye, and you have all the time that you need to talk about them as well. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, the classic loot manager here. 700,000 downloads. I was telling to Lantis before we started recording that this is, to me, it's insane. I think it's a very highly popular add-on, but I would like for you to explain to us what it is, to somebody who might not know what it is or what it does, why it's beneficial to them. Because yeah, we use it in the Royal Army, but maybe other people have never used such a thing in their raiding and whatnot. And how you came up with the idea, that'd be interesting, and the history behind it.
Okay, sure. So back in Classic, we have used DKP system, Dragon Kill Points, very old system. I think it is even originating from the times of Lineage MMO.
Yeah.
So quite before WoW.
Yeah, it should go way back. Yeah.
And there was one add-on. It actually had over 600,000 downloads only in Classic. It was called Monolith DKP. And it worked. And that's the only positive thing I can say about it. It worked. It did its job. It was written by an amateur. But well, it worked, there was nothing else working. And back then, I got approval from the author to actually create a fork. And I did a fork, and I did a lot of fixes. That was my first adventure with add-on development, basically creating Essential DKP spin-off for our guild, Essential. I fixed the monolith, and we ride it using it throughout whole Classic. But
So sorry for cutting you off, but because I have zero knowledge over all these things. What's a fork?
well, it's a method or functionality of Git, or actually a code management system, to have a separate copy of the repository connected to the original one.
Oh, I see. Got it.
So if you take the analogy, I think that's where it came from. Is like if you see the development of the code as a road that you're on. So every next version is a point up in the road, but at some point, some people could say, "We're going the other way." So you create a fork in the road. One addon goes one way.
I see. Yeah, that's
and the other, yeah. And then later on, you can merge them again. It's again a road analogy because the two roads can come together again.
Right. I see. Okay.
Yeah, so when TBC was near, we simply thought that, this won't work for us, especially that there was a lot of changes coming in the API, because when TBC came in, Blizzard did a lot of API synchronization between retail and classic, which wasn't the case in vanilla classic.
Mm-hmm.
Could we
And
explain, by the way, what an API is? Is that a familiar term for people?
okay, so
we could.
So API is basically shortcut from application programming interface. So a set of commands or functions or methods to use that are given to you by the environment you are in. In this case, the WoW execution environment.
Right.
Everything that happens needs to happen through the API. There's no other way, simply.
Mm-hmm.
And so TBC came, and we started discussing with some. I don't even recall how we actually got into the discussion itself. Do you remember some?
Yeah, I think there was talk of developing a new add-on, and I was talking with some friends as well. One of the really annoying things was about the monolith. In essential, we had multiple raiding teams. So at some point, I think we caused a wipe in one raid because the other raid was pushing out loot or something, because it would sync a whole big data set, and it would essentially run the denial of service attack that I described. Like, it would send a whole lot of data, and then at the end, everyone would freeze for like 20 seconds because we had a big data set. And if that happens during a boss fight, that's not optimal. So then we were at a stage where we would say, well, okay, everyone, heads up, we're going to do decay now or something like that. And that's when I already started thinking about the communication part. So when yeah, I'm not sure exactly, but when someone mentioned that Lantis was going to develop something new, like I immediately was triggered. Like, well, I want to work on the communication and data layer of this add-on. And that's, I think, how it started. Like, yeah, I don't remember the details, to be honest.
Yeah, I think something like that. And I remember that we went to a separate Discord and had like 3 or 6 months of discussion how we want the core to look like.
Right.
So the designing part was the one that took more time.
I would say
the interface.
no, not the inter. Well, okay, let's start to step back. I would say Sam's talking me into a proper way of doing stuff took the most time, since Sam's a professional. And I wasn't very sure if we want to go this way, but in the end, we decided that Sam's approach is the best one. And I'm very happy about it, and I'm very grateful to Sam, because the methodology is very useful. I'm even using it for some research at work. And after we did the discussions, we started working separately, because whole CLM database and communication are quite tied together through a library that Sam developed. And I didn't need Sam to work on my part, and Sam didn't need me in the beginning. I started working on some, functionalities, trying to see what will we actually need,
Right.
So when you think about the communication layer, earlier, Lantis explained what an API is, right? So an API is anything that's offered by the environment. So in WoW, we have like things to, to get the people in your guild or get the name of your current target and stuff like that. Those are all APIs. But libraries can actually also define functions. So you could create a library that helps you with stuff that you often need to do. For example, you could create a library that tells you the level difference or the chance to hit for a specific target that you're targeting. And the idea is that if you have a library that does that, you don't have to reinvent the wheel and possibly make mistakes that someone else already made and fixed.
Yeah, got it.
So the communication and database layer, the idea was the same. We only had to agree on the API so that Lantis knew like what things he could do. The idea was like this is how you store code or store data. This is how you change data, and I will make sure everyone has this data.
Did you have access in the beginning, for example, in TBC, to all the objects in the game? Let's say the items, the weapons, the armors, and everything. Did you have access to that, or you had to implement it manually?
I think actually the client has ways to get this information, but you cannot just get it for everything at the same time. So many add-ons sometimes will not show a tooltip properly. For example, if you have pawn, I noticed it with pawn with the gem helper or something, it will sometimes not show a tooltip for an item that no one has linked to you or you haven't seen in game. But the documentation by the community, because it's a 20-year-old game, of course, tells us all the APIs that are available. They've been mined from the client. So every release, someone updates this on GitHub, and it's just extracted, and then you can figure out what it does by trying it.
How long did it take you guys to go from ideation to launch, essentially?
Let me
That
just
is
check.
tough question.
I see.
I think we started the discussion in January. We can check what was the first tag that we did.
Which year?
21. Yeah, 21. And first scratch I see April 8th, 2021.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And actually, before that, even the first commit on the communication layer, which at that point was more like a proof of concept, right? Because I wasn't sure that we could do it. So the unique thing about the database layer is the fact that it synchronizes in the background. This is done because we only add new data. We never remove anything, which makes synchronization relatively easily. But it wasn't actually sure if this would work in game. So February 22nd, 2021, we did the first testing of some code that could synchronize. But it wasn't an add-on, like it wasn't synchronizing anything useful. It was more of a proof of concept. And that gave so after that we probably agreed on and finalized the API so that Lantis could actually build the management code, which is CLM, to actually store something useful, right? And to make it usable.
Yeah, I see that May 15. Yeah, sorry, May 15, 2021 was the first beta release to actually be used. That had some functionalities.
Oh, 4 months. Well, that's not so bad.
Depends on how much time you spend each day.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask now. Did it feel like like a job, or were you guys treating it like a like a side project? Maybe I spent like I invest rather not spend 2 hours per day on it. Yeah. Yeah, like a baby.
It felt like 2 jobs.
Oh, Jesus. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it depends on the day. There are days that I do no coding, but there were days that I spent like 10, 16 even hours coding.
What? Wow. That's crazy, man. Well, thank you, guys, both. I mean,
I feel a bit lazy now. Like I did definitely spend some work days. I'm self-employed, so I see this as a way to test existing strategies or patterns in a different language. When you get to know the language, it's actually very interesting. So I definitely spent like some weeks, several days a week, just working on it. But I never made 16 hours a day of coding. I wouldn't be very productive if I did. I guess I'm not as I can't go for that long, Lantis.
Right, I see. I can already picture Lantis with a bunch of Red Bulls or other with a lot of caffeine working on it day and night. But honestly, that's a lot of investment for something that's a huge part of the classic community is actually using, and they're helping them every day. And as a person who, well, I'm not using it to. I'm not the loot master or anything, so I'm not sure how it functions on that end. But as the, how should I call me? I don't know if I'm the end user, but um, as a user of the, let's say, product, I see that it's very efficient, and it's actually very intuitive as well. It's easy to understand what is going on once you see the pop-up window, you know what I mean? Without somebody explaining to you. Even if you don't know what a DKP system is, because that's what we're using at the Royal Army, it's still very intuitive. So I don't know. I want to thank you guys for that because you've spent a lot of time on it, and it shows. And it's actually a very good, very helpful add-on, and you're there for the community whenever something happens. You quickly resolve it, which is also very important. And that would be my next question. So you guys, after 4 months, released the beta version, right? So you basically wanted the community to do some testing on it to figure out what works and what doesn't, and maybe tell you their needs. Is this accurate, or am I misunderstanding it completely?
I think we wanted our own guild's input primarily.
Oh, cool.
Because, of course, one thing with loot systems is that everyone has an opinion on them. So you really quickly get into a discussion of the way we had our loot system back in the day. And then the question, should we implement this, or should we just alter the loot system to be a bit simpler if it isn't that relevant? And I think to this day, even we get I say we, but honestly, for the last year at least, Lantis has been doing most of the CLM work because the library just doesn't need much work. Basically, any new feature is being built on top of it, and it still works. But we've had people ask for stuff, and at some point, I know Lantis also responded like, well, maybe just don't do it this way. It's not that relevant of a change. So people would essentially come to us like, well, you give out DKP after a boss dies. We want to delay it by 5 minutes, like for some random reason or something.
Yeah.
Like they would actually request features like these. Like, well, maybe you should just simplify your loot system a bit to fall within the scope of the tools that can support it easily. So that's what we did with the first beta. Like, is this a minimum viable product essentially?
Right.
So
MVP.
yes,
Yeah.
you tried the add-on on your guild first, right?
Yeah, I think Lantis just says, okay, tonight we're doing this. Everyone install it, and
Were they eager to try it? Did they trust you when you said you were developing, an add-on that you will change the way you're dealing with loot?
yeah, I think so. Lantis, how did you feel about it? I think we have gotten a lot of leeway from
Yeah, we got
the
a lot
leadership.
of support. We got a lot of support, especially testing, because in the beginning there were a lot of issues. Even, you install one version, you have different amount of DKP than you had in previous version. And that shouldn't happen,
That's what I wanted
And
to ask first. After, yeah. Go on.
yeah, and we got a lot of support from the guild, a lot of feedback, a lot of information. A lot of the features that you currently see as, as granted actually came from the feedback of our master looters because of the amount of raid that we had. One thing I didn't mention was that when TBC started, we were running Karazhan, 12 teams of Karazhan each week, even 8
Wow.
at the same time. That's the scale of the add-on that we were targeting.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then having up-to-date data always is an issue, right? Because historically, like with Essential, officers had to download files and synchronize them offline, because the next day you have another 4 teams running, and no one knew who had the latest data or stuff like that. So yeah, that was a very big challenge. I remember back in the day.
What?
So
How did the first run go? I really wanna hear that story.
yeah.
The first, even the beta testing, the first time you tried the add-on with a guild, how did that go?
I remember it went surprisingly positive from the user
Flawless,
side. Sorry?
flawless, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah, I think so. No Lua errors, I remember, and all the functionalities that were there, but there were just few of them, worked. So yeah, it went very well. But the add-on had like maybe 20% of the functionalities, maybe even less back then.
Right. Right. And then how did you scale from that? How did you go about scaling? Was it like word of mouth or is it something else that you guys did?
Well, basically word of mouth, because back then only community DKP existed for DKP, and the contributor decided to drop it. Basically, there was no other add-on, and on
Right.
the community DKP, they just posted, "Hey, it's not supported. Go use CLM."
I
Uh,
see. I
I
see.
did a post or two on Reddit. Yeah, and that's basically it. If you want DKP or EPGP now, you just go search it and you will see CLM near the beginning. A bit moved lately because of the new search engine, of CourseWord.
Right. So now that you guys have like 700,000 downloads, which again to me sounds crazy, honestly. How you went, from testing it to with guild members, albeit in a huge guild, from what I can understand, to having 700,000 downloads, and on your Discord channel you have about 1,000, I think, members at the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong here. How do you
Yeah,
manage now
1030.
that the add-on has scaled to that extent? How do you guys manage community feedback, and is there like a line? Because Sam mentioned that everybody has an opinion, and that's important. So how do you try to be efficient when it comes to, okay, this is information that I feel like it's useful, maybe we can look into it. Is it just experience, or is it something else?
Well, I've got two rules that I try always to stick to, or rather, two
Mm-hmm.
questions that I try to answer. It's the first one is it useful to me? Will I use it ever? And the
Mm-hmm.
second one is it useful for the generic community?
Mm-hmm.
If at least one of those is answered yes, then usually this feature ends in sight.
Right. Right.
I could add a lot of more features. Sorry, yeah, my cat is hissing at me right now. She's
It's
literally
fine.
above my head. I could do a lot of features based on slash commands or stuff like that I don't do, because those are usually one-time requests. I
Yeah.
sometimes provide people some code snippets that they could use,
Right.
etc.
I see. What's the wildest thing that somebody asked you to do? Like the craziest thing?
I don't think there was very wild things.
Oh, I see.
More just like stupid things, like stuff that's already possible in a different way. I have a lot less patience with this. I do a
Mm-hmm.
lot of other open source work as well, and I always admire Lantis for his patience. I am definitely not as patient. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so people will ask for anything that just makes it more useful for them, right? Like they will say, well, I usually pass on loot. Why can't pass be the button on the left or right? You know, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it shows you that they are really not thinking in any generalized way, right? So it's like, well, okay, but you do this, but do you think everyone is just, I don't know, passing loot? Like, do you think this add-on would exist if that was the goal? And yeah,
True.
You're saying I'm patient, right? But do you remember when I did release of the multi-item auction and the amount of questions to remove that? I don't think I was ever so close to losing my patience there. All the
But you
ads
kept
about
it.
removing multiple item actions, yes, and it
Yeah.
is never going. I'm never going back to one item at the same
Yeah.
time.
No,
You
no,
can
no.
do that,
It's
but
been great. Are you guys using that feature in your guild?
The multi-action? No,
Yeah.
never.
You should. You should try it once. It will save you so much time.
Really?
Yeah. The idea is what I found. While I enjoy creating add-ons, I don't so much enjoy necessarily preparing my character. So I don't really know which loot I need and stuff like that. So normally when you have an auction per item, you have like 30 seconds, right? This will be the first time I've seen this item, so then I'm looking in some lists whether this is actually good for me. With multi-item auction, you have 2 minutes. So as soon as the boss dies, you get like 7 items. You can click
well, any
around.
longer time, to be honest.
Dude, where were you all my life? All phase 2, where were you?
He's been
Well-
spending DKP like crazy because
Yeah.
he's scared of losing the item. But
Yeah, and I cannot, sim on in parallel as the auction is running down. I can just look at the sim and see, okay, is this item actually useful for me? Is it an upgrade or isn't? So most of the times I go like, okay, let's spend the DKP and we'll see later because the time is is pressing. But now that you mentioned that, I'm gonna go back to the guild and
Yeah.
tell her.
So I know that Lantis for himself, he sims for sure, and we have several other people who will sim an upgrade if it drops for them, and they will make it within the timer easily. And of course the nice thing as well is we have our loot master is great, and we are very flexible, not so much loot focused. So if you make a mistake, it's usually easy to recover, and that's also what CLM supports very well, right? So you can just I mean, I've been known to get duplicate tokens, tier tokens, and we can just trade them and fix that in the loot later, so loot doesn't go to waste.
yeah, I mean, our previous loot master, he's been using the add-on, and
Yeah.
he showed us how fast and how efficient it is in CLM to make a change if something goes wrong or you don't need the item and you want to get your DKP back. It's so fast and efficient. You don't have to do all this work that you should do back then, at least.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
really
think
love that.
a good combination of the UI and the library, because something that we didn't mention is that every action in CLM is stored and
It's
synchronized.
recorded, yeah. Yeah, that's the best part, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. That's exactly what Sam was focusing on. And because of that, just doing that in UI was pretty hard, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it gave us a lot of flexibility.
The
And it's also
history,
so
so
easy
many
to
things.
recover.
So many things that I like about this add-on. I mean, the history, you can check an item, you can check the player, what the player has bought. It's so amazing to have everything recorded from day one to the whole phase.
True.
It's insane.
Yeah, you
True.
can actually check even more than you see in the UI simply because of the time constraints. For example, I've developed a script in Python that parses the state variable file, so the database file, and we can actually check on a web page dedicated for our guild to see who has bid for what item anytime in the history. That's something that you can't usually see in the UI.
Yeah, but that's just for loot masters, right? I mean, that like other people don't get that data of the bits
Yeah.
individually.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is the way data is stored, we write down everything. So if we add a new feature, every time you log in or reload, it's the full history is essentially recalculated. So when Lantis added, for example, attendance, what happens is he adds a new calculation based on the fact if you were in a raid or not. So then attendance will work immediately instead of in 4 weeks. You will see your history, your historical attendance based on the existing data. So any new feature. So if you want to know how much DKP you've gotten on average, for example, or spending on average, and that would be added as a graph somewhere in the add-on, it would show for all history as well, and that's really nice, I think.
You know what's amazing actually? The fact that it can store so much data that you can backtrack to like the beginning of time, let's say, right? But it still does not feel very heavy for the raid when it's actually being run. It feels like it's just there and it doesn't really impact, frame rates or stuff like that, which I don't know. I would assume that with an add-on of this magnitude that can do so many things and keeps hold of all this data, it would create some sort of an issue. I don't know. I may be wrong here because I know nothing
Yeah,
about
yeah. This is
coding.
You are right.
this is actually what we did a lot of testing on at the start, right? So you can see when you hover over the minimap icon how many events are stored. Do you have any idea how many events are in your guild's history? Like, have you ever checked it?
I think, but I'm not sure. I
All the
wouldn't. I
events,
wouldn't know the answer.
probably no.
Mm,
Probably no. Yeah.
yeah,
Can you
probably.
ballpark it?
For our guild sum, it is 3,200. So it's
Yeah.
basically nothing.
Yeah. So in Essential we had like 16 or 20,000.
Yeah, over
We've-
20.
We have tested this for up to 100,000 in theory, but the idea is that even though the list of events that you have to go through is very long, we can just
Mhm.
throttle it. So we will say every 50 milliseconds we will do 100 events. It might mean that after reloading it will take longer before the add-on to become active. And I think nowadays when it happens, CLM will actually show you a progress bar in the top for the
Yeah.
recalculation.
It
Oh,
does.
yeah.
And you shouldn't be seeing this a lot, right? This only happens if a synchronization is not in sync. So if you get items in order, then it's all good. Then no recalculation needs to happen. And if you think about it, like if I tell you to sum 1,000 numbers, you might say, well, that's a lot of work. But if I just give them to you one by one and you keep a running total, you could do it in your head. Like you don't even need pen and paper for it in theory. And this is what the add-on does as well, right? So every event, it just needs to know what is changing. So if I get an item for 50 DKP, my current total changes and it goes down by 50. And it only needs to store that in the memory of the add-on, which means that the memory usage is actually quite low. And when we show a list, for example, we only have to show a very simple list that we've already calculated in advance. So this is why I guess it's always quick, and the only way to really wreck it is to constantly sync data out of sync. So if you have 100 people, like 100 officers, or 10, like we had in Essential, in different raids, and then coming online and synchronizing all data, then you might see a lot of restarts of the library. And when that happens, you get the progress bar, and it takes a few seconds.
Right.
Yeah,
But,
we've also put a lot of effort into optimizing the events, right? So they are actually very, very small for the thing. And they are very easily compressed because all the communication is compressed, serialized.
Even the UI is so practical and easy to use for the average user. I mean, you've got no development idea, but I don't know how it is for the loot masters, but for the average player and raider, it's really easy to use and look all the info you need for everything. Even when when you roll an item, when you want to check something out, it's so easy and it seems so polished, and I love that about the add-on.
Thanks.
Do
To
you?
be honest, UI is pretty hard to make in WoW,
Yeah.
but there is this huge framework called ACE3 that I have decided to use because I have no idea how to make user interfaces. I'm hardware guy. I look at zeros and ones and waveforms.
Yeah.
Definitely not UI UX user experience. So use that, and that helped a lot.
Right. It sounds like you guys thought of everything. I wanted to ask, is there something, some sort of, let's say, functionality that you're, I don't know, you think that it's missing from the add-on and you're hoping to add in the future? I don't know.
Well,
Cross
I
guild
know.
synchronization.
Yeah. So one of the big limitations. So in the WoW environment, you have different ways of communicating with each other. So you have group channels like guild and raid, and they are
Mm-hmm.
very cheap to use, right? I can send one message and I can reach the whole guild.
Mm-hmm.
If I would need to send the same message to 10 individuals, I would need to send 10 whispers, which is essentially 10 times slower because of the throttling. So
Mm-hmm.
currently all synchronization happens in guild, and this is great as long as people are in the same guild. Since the start, we've had requests of cross-guild synchronizations, and that is actually really hard to solve. So cross-guild synchronization, even cross-server synchronization. Um, yes, so in theory, people would be. It's like, well, I generally raid with this guild. Can I get notified? Like, can I just subscribe to their ledger, is what we call it. So their list of events, and that's currently
Right.
not possible. Originally in Classic, it would have been possible, but Blizzard disabled this. So one of the features they disabled to prevent the Dungeon Finder add-on from working is they prevented custom chat channels. I'm not sure if anyone has ever used them. Have you guys used them before?
I don't think
Custom
so.
Yes.
channels.
So if you go into your chat and WoW and you type /join and type a channel name, like any name, you can set up your own channel. So you could use this, for example, to have a channel with your friends where you always join, even with alts and stuff like that. It's like a precursor of the battle.net group chats.
Mhm.
And Addon had similar channels. So I could create my add-on and say, well, all my clients, so all users with this add-on will join this channel, and we get to communicate very efficiently. This is how the Dungeon Finder worked originally. But Blizzard
Or
wasn't too happy about that, so they disabled this. So now add-ons cannot have group communication except through raid, guild, or party.
or like the
Mm.
communities they did in retail, right? Something like that.
Yeah, I think that's similar. That's the battle.net community, I think.
Mm.
I'm not sure. Like I haven't played retail in a very long time. So yeah, that's actually a very big challenge. That's one of the big features that I'd love to look into.
Mm-hmm.
But I also haven't found the time or more specifically motivation to work on this.
Mm-hmm.
On the positive note, cross-server communication is coming.
Yeah,
Well, it even works on my setup.
nice.
Yeah, but it's for retail for now. But who knows what will happen to Classic when Kata comes? We need to be ready.
Oh, you guys are really looking into the future, huh? That's interesting. That's nice to know, because I've seen a lot of, like you mentioned it too. I feel like that a lot of people just give up at some point. They just stop because the hours that it takes to maintain it, and not only maintain it in a sense that it's working and we're fixing bugs, but also constantly adding new things. It's nice to know that you guys are keep going at it. So uh, I wanted to ask, what is it that keeps you guys going? Because you mentioned, Lantis mentioned that there were times where it felt like having two jobs. So, I mean, I'm just gonna ask the question, and if you guys don't want to respond to it, that's okay, honestly. Is there any monetary gain that comes from being on Curseforge, or is it just people donating to you to keep doing the job that you're doing. Do you do it for the community because you feel like you, let's say, owe it to them? I don't know. Or do you just do it as a because you like the side hustle in a sense?
I'll answer that broadly because it's all three. So,
I see. Hmm.
Fuck! Sorry, Jesus, my cat just jumped on my head. Ah!
Oh, yeah.
dear. Yeah. So
Felines. Felines. Yeah.
yeah, I've got three cats,
Oh, jeez.
and the youngest one loves sitting on the back of my chair, and she just did miss the jump and landed on my hand.
Man, cats. Amazing.
Yeah, lovely creatures. I hate them. So
Don't we all? Yeah.
exactly. So to continue the answer, all three things. From one
Right.
side, there is nothing else like this in the community, and since both me and I think some also we are big advocates of the free and open source
Mhm.
software community. It's really nice to give something to the community. Second thing is I actually enjoy it. It is a break for me from the actual hard job that I do
Right.
at work because I don't need to use my brain that much when coding add-ons versus what I have to do at work. I know it might sound silly for some people.
No, we
But
can see this in your code, Lantis.
yeah, you can clearly see when the code is better and worse. That's completely true. And
Mhm.
when I was better, more experienced, and when I was less. And also
Mhm.
there are some monetary gains. We got Patreon setup.
Mhm.
There's not much money coming from there. Um,
Mhm.
and there's also CurseForge point program. However, there's basically no money from that for add-on on this scale.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't get a single penny yet from CurseForge.
No.
We got few, maybe 200 or 300 bucks from patrons throughout all of the CLM lifetime.
I see.
So the monetary is really good for very big add-ons,
Mhm.
but for small add-ons, it's more like we like to do it. It's nice to
I
have
see.
something.
I see. How would you define big though? Like tens of millions of downloads or something?
It's based on the amount of downloads per release. For example, we have
Oh.
like 700,000 downloads total, right?
Mhm.
Auras have 2 million downloads per release.
Mhm.
It's not even that scale,
Right.
Like we've got 17,000 or 20,000 users at this point. It's not
I
a
see.
small value, but it's not
Mhm.
like huge add-on.
Mhm. Is this why the gargle guy keeps updating the add-on all the time? You have to download it
Oh,
because.
Zorax? No, that's not it.
Oh, okay.
It's not like the amount of versions or downloads is like directly connected to the points that he makes more updates, so he has more money. No, that's not true.
Cool.
Because it's based on the average. I actually, most people don't know, but I actually talk a lot with Zorax because we met back in the community DKP add-on, and we decided
Mhm.
to split our ways.
Mhm.
And he went with Gargoyle, I went with CLM, and you will even see that in CLM you have some Gargoyle integration.
Yeah.
Yeah, but basically what Zorax does, he does a great job, and he does a lot of updates because he likes to.
I see. I see.
Yeah, but with a
I
simple
see.
division of, if you say you have about 25,000 users active, if it only got even one group of 25 people, that's 1,000 guilds using it at the moment. That, that's a big
That
number,
sounds
right?
pretty nice, yeah.
If
If
you
you
Yeah.
if you
take it
consider
that
it
way.
like this, yeah.
pretty nice to have 1,000 guilds dependent. Although imagine what would happen if the add-on would die suddenly one day.
Yeah, yeah. I know that our former loot master Rob would probably hunt you guys down because he really loves the the add-on. I think he's in love with it. We actually asked him at some point if there's something that he feels that the add-on could be doing better, if there's something that he doesn't like, and his response after consideration, mind you, he said, I think it's perfect the way it is. It works. And I feel like you guys should really be proud of yourselves because you've created something that a lot of people basically use to make their lives easier. And developing it kind of make your life hard, I guess.
Yeah,
Or
and
harder.
and the
Yeah,
insight you gave us was pretty clear. I mean, we got so much info that we were really eager to hear.
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah, making life easier is the actual goal, to be honest, because we enjoy riding. We are in a that guild. Both of us are that's actually, and nobody in a that guild wants to spend time miserably when you have just few hours a week to ride, right?
Yep.
Hmm. So before we close off, if you guys have any shout outs that you want to make or any future plans that you may have either on classic or on retail, and you want to announce it publicly, maybe, I don't know, whatever you guys feel like.
Or inside projects that we would like to
Yeah,
do
yeah, yeah.
for sure.
Other projects, sure, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I would say retail. CLM is coming to retail, hopefully by tomorrow. Not with full
Oh,
functionality, but probably with some limitations, but it is coming to
nice.
test. So
Yeah,
hopefully someone will use it.
I would mostly like to reiterate that Lantis is doing the bulk of the work. Since the first few releases, I think he's been doing 90%. Anything that you see is mostly him nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I would still love to get some more motivation to work on the layers below. I really think all add-ons could probably improve from some structure
Mm-hmm.
that we could provide. So we use things like we as an add-on developers use things like libstub and very few libraries that can often can be improved a lot, I think. And yeah, it would be really cool if someday I could make it like a library that helps other libraries or add-ons make stuff like make their life easier. But I have no specific plans for that, just ideas
Mm-hmm.
and concepts.
You will
Mm-hmm.
get your motivations when you see once you see my cross-server synchronization code. You
Yeah,
will just hop in to fix it.
thanks.
So, retail players rejoice, I guess, because CLM is coming to you to help you guys out, as it has been helping classic community. Um, yeah, I mean, you guys have planned for the future. You love the community. You're here to provide. You're putting in the hours. Um, you're putting in the motivation. You're doing everything. On behalf of the community and on behalf of the rest of my guild, actually, I would like to thank you
Yeah,
for
a huge thanks.
yeah, for doing what you're doing. I know it may not sound like a lot, and maybe something like better communication on Blizzard's end might do you guys insane favor, but you do have I want to say a huge thanks from the people who are actually using it. We really do respect the hours that you're putting in and the work that you guys are putting in, and we wouldn't be and thanks for making our lives easier, like you guys mentioned. It's important.
Yeah,
So
I'd also say that feel free to join their Discord channel. Maybe support the guys
yeah,
that can
yeah.
put up all that work for us.
Download Classic Loot Manager as well. Use it. Give it a try. It'll definitely help you out immensely, as it has been helping us. If you're using DKP system or EPGP, it works wonders, really. And yeah, just join the Lantis's and Sam's community over at Classic Loot Manager on their Discord server. You can Google it and find it. It's pretty easy. We'll also put a link somewhere in the description of the video so that guys can actually find it. Guys, thank you again for being here. To me, I don't know, there were a lot of things that I didn't understand because, you know, there's the vernacular that I didn't really understand, but I really grasped the passion and the hours that you guys put in. So again, thank you for that. And before we close you off, any shout outs that you might want to do to anybody, any thanks that you may want to give?
No, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Cool.
one shout out. You might not know, but there was a guy on our server named Virgil. He made the icon for CLM. It's a big shout out for him.
Right.
I think he's no longer playing. He was with us in Essential, then Virtue. But yeah, he made the icon. So basically, he made the face of CLM. So thanks for that, and thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks guys for being here. This was episode 3. Next episode 4, features our former loot master Rob, and we're going to be talking about raid etiquette. Also, I would like to mention that we're going to have a Google form or whatever somewhere. If anybody wants to come in and be a guest, or you know, suggest someone to be a guest,
or the next topic or anything.
Yeah, or the next topic. Yeah, we're going to add that because it's actually hard for us to find people because we don't know the entire community. Thanks again to Lantis and Sam. You guys have been awesome, and we'll see you again in the future.